Welcome to Project Spaces, everybody. Big round of applause. We have a panel tonight. It's a very broad panel. People that do software sales, people that do physical product sales, people that are founders, people that are non-founders. So I don't want to tell you much about them. I'd rather have them introduce themselves. So Cahill, take it away. Who are you?
Okay. My name is Cahill. Sounds like K on a hill for those of you who may be reading my name tag at some point. I work here at Project Spaces. I'm doing a couple of projects right now. Working with the Toronto Men's Fashion Week as a volunteer director of sponsorships, and I've been doing that since it started. So we're in the third season right now, just going into that for August. I also am working on an education site that teaches startups how to do sales, business development, cold emailing, and eventually e-commerce as well.
Should we clap after that? I'm Brandy, hi, and I work out of Project Rhino, so the other location, and I'm the founder of Evelyn Iona Cosmetics, and we are a socially conscious, natural, organic cosmetic line selling in 3 countries. And we also give back to our community as well. We're partnered with YWCA Canada, and we donate $1 from every product sold to the Y, as well as facilitate programs within their women's shelters. And I think that's all I do.
But she does it all day long.
Hi everyone, I'm Jafar. I am one of the co-founders of a software company called Loopio. We are a collaboration and sales content management platform, which basically is helping organizations build sales proposals and being able to sell into larger businesses.
And that was really short. I wasn't prepared. I was really late, but my name's Jonathan. I'm sorry for making you all wait. I currently work for Groupon. Just started there 2 weeks ago, so I can't really talk too much about that because, well, yeah. But previously I've worked for a couple of different startups in Australia. One got bought out by Yahoo and the other's still running and keeps receiving more investment. And I specialize in selling to small, medium businesses.
All right, so we have a great, smart panel here today, and I'm excited to drill into some tactics that they have found work well. Jonathan, when you were with Venue Mob, what would the actual process be like? Because you were a non-founder of the company, you came in. What did they tell you, and what were you expected to do?
Yeah, look, I have a quick question for you first. What on earth is that thing on the floor that you've been aiming at everyone? Is that some sort of a new Furby?
So I got a new phone case today.
Seriously, you just
I got a new phone case and I'm
snapping.
snapping. So if anyone wants to see anything, my Snapchat is Jeff Howe, JEFHOW. I'm sharing to my story. Maybe it'll appear on the Toronto story as well. But it's my phone case and I'm just taking pictures. I know it's rude, I'm sorry. I should put it away.
You keep that thing on you at all times, do you?
Apparently.
Your phone always stays in that case.
If your phone is in your pocket, you are not making money.
All right, you got me there.
I'm just saying.
I'm sorry I asked.
It's okay.
What was the question again?
What was the sales? So, as someone that was brought in as a non-founder salesperson, what was the process? What were you expected to do over at Venue Mob?
They virtually had no sales process. But yeah, so I was in ground level. There'd been a few salespeople there before me, but they'd sucked. So it was cold sourcing the business. I'd look up a restaurant that I liked, read about the reviews, make sure it was legitimate, and then I'd try and find out the owner's name, cold contact them, book a meeting, pitch them, and try and sign them up.
Makes
sign
sense.
them up. Yeah.
Jafar, so your product launched less than a year ago.
Yep.
And
August.
you already have 60 paying enterprise customers?
Yep.
How do you do it?
So I think what's unique for us as a startup, what we did before we even had a product is we reached out to customers. So we weren't scared to show mock-ups. We weren't scared to ask interview questions. And after every call, we asked, is there anyone else you know who would like this and you can refer us to? And with that, we were able to secure a beta period where we had about 40 customers with pretty high engagement during that beta phase. And after that, what was interesting for us, and I think what's rare for a startup, I don't know if anyone here has ever responded to a request for a proposal or an RFP, But for most businesses, it's a really painful process. And it seems like it's something that people are actually searching for. So for us, most of our leads were coming to us as inbound. They were hitting our site, and they still are, and scheduling a demo with us. And we're using our demo as a way to not only qualify these customers to see if they're a right fit, but in the end, just walk them through the platform and really make sure that we understand their needs. And part of the sales process is echoing exactly what they tell to us and echoing it back as part of the walkthrough of the product. And that's really what's helped us in order to close these deals is first we're in an area that's already people are experiencing a pain, which is awesome for us. And second, our space in terms of competitors are super old school and have really clunky software. So when they see our platform, it's really refreshing for them. And in the end, whether it's me or my co-founders or other members of the sales team, we're not trained salespeople. So it's just like more of a friendly conversation and a relationship, which I think they appreciate, and it ends up working well. So that's how we've been able to grow.
Excellent. Good job. Big round of applause for that. So you touched on relationships there, and I think those are very, very important because I have this saying, business happens person to person, not corporate enterprise to corporate enterprise. There's always someone that makes the decisions, someone that signs off on it. And I know that can be really helpful. Brandy, you were telling me a story when you sold into a major retailer. You built a relationship with them and got this really great outcome. Do you want to tell me a bit about that?
So first and foremost, we care more about why we sell what we sell, and why we do what we do ultimately, and that makes them get more engaged and just brings us more together as friends. So we're doing business human to human, because ultimately there's a human behind the corporation. Wherever it was started, we all started from ground zero, and having that relativeness to it really engages on them to our company, and therefore they sell a lot of our makeup. And a story, I think the one that Jeff was referring to, was we actually started selling to a large company in the US, and they just finished ordering, and we just finished filling a 200,000 unit order. So they ordered 200,000 concealers, and they knew that we were a small company. I think we're actually the smallest company they've ever worked with. We're a team of 4. And, and so I obviously didn't tell them that there were struggles that came along with that, but we built such a strong relationship with them that they knew that we were getting some. Also, we're a company that's never had any funding, period, completely solely funded by myself, and so I don't know if they knew that, but they knew a little bit around that because we became friends. And we don't tell them personal details, but just close enough business friends. And therefore, when we were looking for funding, because doing this deal with them nearly bankrupt us because they have 45 days net, and we were producing so much product on our own dime in a small company, they actually nixed their 45-day net and paid us a 6-figure, just transferred the money, no problem at all, because they believed in us and they were our friends, not because we were corporations.
Right on. Cahill, so you were mentioning you were involved with Toronto Men's Fashion Week. You are, and I know last season you signed on a big sponsor, Canon.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell me how you got them? So I'm sure, first of all, you use Customero.
I do, of course, Customero. No, Customero is actually something that I'm really excited to try in the next 30 to 60 days, actually. So Robin and I have been talking a lot about it. So.
Excellent. So how did you go about getting How did you go about getting any sponsor? Do you have some tricks and tips?
Yeah. So I think with any kind of sales process, there's 2 different things you got to look at. One is sales strategy, and that is do we go outbound or inbound? Like, what's our mix like? Who's our target demographic? And then you get into sales tactics. Sales tactics are okay, we need to contact 50 people a day. We need to have this many calls, this many demos. We need to have this many free trials, etc. So I always start my sales process, and this goes back to what you were saying about the why. I think if you haven't seen Simon Sinek's talk about How Great Leaders Inspire, you should definitely watch that, because that is the base of any kind of really good marketing or really good sales. So whether it's from this marketing advertising agency that I worked at, where we're selling sections in the newspaper, or whether it's Toronto Men's Fashion Week, I think the first thing you got to understand is, why are you doing it? And what is that message about? Like, how is that message emotional? How does it create impact? And how can you communicate that? From there, then you get into strategy and tactics. And so for me, to sell somebody like Canon or Town Shoes or the Toronto Stock Exchange, I didn't have relationships with any of these companies. So for me, it's research, getting cold leads, emailing people, emailing certain targets, following up with those targets, getting them on the phone and pitching them. And that's like the tactical, like step by step. You just got to do that. And that's where, again, programs like Customero that can really shorten that process, because it can really help you out. But yeah, that's how I did it.
Excellent. And Brandy, why isn't your cosmetics line everywhere? And what are some of the tactics you use to get into new boutiques or to bring on new retailers?
Our company actually started because I started the company after leaving a women's shelter with $15 in my pocket. So that's why we do what we do. That's why we give back to the women in the shelter. That's why we create a cosmetic line, because it's a $170 billion industry created for women. It might as well help women. So it's important to us that whomever we're selling to agrees with that moral, and also that is able to tell our story in this matter that is valuable instead of sympathetic, I guess. And so these smaller boutiques can really do that, because we can connect with them on a one-on-one level. So it gets our story out to the masses the way we want it to be told.
Jonathan, how much flexibility did you have when you were working for Venue Mob out in Australia? Like, what did you have reluctant venue owners? Like, could you offer different percentages? How much flexibility did you have to actually get them on the platform?
I've always had a lot of flexibility in all the sales jobs I've worked, that I could, create variations in commissions charged or the conditions of the sign-up. I've always been one of the salespeople that sort of, I guess, tried to give the better deal to the business. I've always said, I'd make a lot more money in sales if I wasn't so honest, but if I am dealing with a small business, I usually don't feel like I can charge them the full rate. If it's going to take them a while to benefit from our service, I'll lower their commission and I'll lower my own paycheck, but I'll be able to sleep at night. And I don't know, I get a lot of referrals, I get a lot of sales, it's worked for me. But yeah, as with most sales models for companies, there's always a bit of variation, a bit of room to move.
And I want to touch on tools that you all are using right now. So what would be your essential tools that you use every single day to help you make sure you're hitting your sales goals? And
yeah, a lot of people think you can get away with an Excel spreadsheet and the best of intentions, but if you're going to be serious about sales, you want to have a CRM, like a customer reference management system. I think that's what it is. I've always used either Salesforce or Capsule. Salesforce is my preference, but Capsule's a lot cheaper. So that said, I actually do have an Excel, like a sales pipeline planner, just because I'm a little bit old school like that. But yeah, a good CRM that, can give you reminders of people to follow up, and you can log all the notes, and you can put the whole process in there. It can save you so much time, and in sales, time is money. So yeah.
Jafar, you're in the process of switching CRMs?
Yeah, so we were using a small business CRM called Insightly, which was decent when we were first starting up, but now that we're starting to look into more of an outbound strategy, we're using a CRM called Relate IQ, which was actually acquired by Salesforce not too long ago. And the cool thing about it is, for us, we're a Google Apps company. Like, everything we do is on Google, so it's heavily integrated with Google and heavily integrated with Google Chrome. And that allows you to keep track of follow-ups. So I don't need to create tasks to follow up anymore. It automatically will schedule a follow-up if someone doesn't reply to me. It will also put in a ticket to know if someone read my email automatically. So I know how I can pursue my customers and how I can keep pushing forward to close the sale. And the interesting thing is you think that 1, 2, 3, 4 follow-ups and you should give up, but the reality is you can go 10 follow-ups in, and the next thing you know, they're like, sorry, I didn't reply, I'm ready to sign. So it's really good to have a tool like that. And another tool that we use, which has been pretty helpful for us, is something called Calendly. I think it's a horrible name. It's a scheduling tool where customers are actually, they go on our site, they click the schedule demo button, and they can see all the time slots that are available on our demo schedule. And that way they get to pick a convenient time for them without having going through the process of filling out a form and then me emailing them and be like, what's a good time, and going back and forth forever till you finally lock in a time. It's a lot easier to just book something and have an invite go to both your calendars. So it's as much as you can reduce the friction in your sales process, that's where you're going to be able to succeed, because for us, as long as we can get on the phone and show the product, that's where we'll be able to close those deals.
And Cahill, you can probably guess the question.
Yeah.
What are your tools of choice?
So I've used pretty extensively Salesforce is probably the number one choice. But I guess on a personal level, I use Rapportive. If you don't know what it is, you install it into Google Chrome or Firefox, and whenever you type in an email address, it will search for LinkedIn and Twitter to see if that person has a social profile. So it's a great way, especially when you're doing cold emails, to find email addresses and like get a little bit of data. So I use that.
Sorry,
And
what was that?
it's called Rapportive.
Rapportive?
Yeah, it used to be a lot better. It used to search like Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, LinkedIn, like everything, and then LinkedIn bought it and cut off all the other social platforms, which kind of sucks. But I use that, and then I use a couple of smaller programs if I'm doing things like cold emailing, like mailtester.com or Executive Bomb. Like these things are great ways to find anybody's email address, and then you can start reaching out to people and contacting them.
Excellent. I think there are,
Can I
sorry.
do a shout out for another tool?
Absolutely.
The other tool we're starting to use is Customero. So Robin and I met last week, and he's already started helping us and giving us some of those lists of potential prospects to reach out to. And I think the coolest thing that he talked about was the concept of signals, which is very unique for prospecting. So the fact that he's looking at companies that are getting funding or companies that are pursuing certain job postings, it's a great way to find opportunities. So for us, we sell to organizations that end up responding to a lot of requests for proposals, and not all businesses sell in that manner. And the businesses that do are always hiring what are called proposal managers or RFP managers. So what he's done is created this sort of point of looking at signals of companies hiring for these positions. So I know that if they're hiring those positions, they can use a tool like Lupio. So I think it's a great platform. It's just starting to come up, and I will also echo the fact that if you are in a sales role and want to do prospecting, he'd be a good person to beta with, because the more feedback you can give him, the better tool he's going to provide for sort of create for himself, but also create for all of us. So I think that's important.
Can I also add one? Probably my favorite thing of all is Yesware. So Yesware basically allows you to stalk people. You send an email that completely integrates with Gmail and probably other mail providers. And as soon as they open your email, it'll give you an alert saying like they've opened your email. And it's really great. Like you send an email to a prospect, and then you know when they're opening it, and you call them 10 minutes later and be like, "Hey, just following up," and they're like, "Oh, I was just thinking of you," and you're like, "What are the odds? I had no idea you were just thinking of me." So that's really great. It's also great, like you send an email to one of your coworkers or your manager, and you know exactly when they've opened it or when they haven't opened it. So it's a really fun tool, and as far as I know, it's still legal. So yeah, I could definitely recommend that.
So we're almost ready to take some questions from the audience, but I want, before we do that, one piece of sales advice that you wish you had when you were starting out, or that you want to throw onto the world.
What do I have to start?
Because you're the last one talking.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just don't be afraid to go the distance. As long as you're polite, you can get away with pretty much anything. It was this one guy who was standing out the front of my office, just getting some fresh air. He walked by, and I heard him on his phone, and he was talking about how he was looking into running a group buying deal with like Living Social or Groupon. And my ears just pricked up, so I followed him. I then followed him into the building when it was like a building full of like all different offices, which is where mine was. I then followed him into the elevator, continued listening to his conversation. I'm just like, hurry up and get off the phone. I want to talk to you, but he's still just like talking and talking. He then gets off on his floor, which is a different floor to mine. I follow him onto his floor, and he's then walking towards his office. I'm like, for fuck's sake, get off the phone, you know? And he opens his office door, and I'm just like, shit, like, do or die. I'm right behind him. He looks at me, and I'm just like, really sorry to bother you, mate, but I hear you talking about those other group buying companies like Living Social, Groupon. They haven't gotten back to you yet. I work for Spreets, like Australia's biggest group buying company, and I would definitely get back to you if you sent an inquiry to us. And he looks at me and he's like, and then he says to the guy on the phone, he's like, mate, I'm going to have to call you back. And I'm just, I'm really freaked out that he's going to be like, get away, like he stalked me or whatever. And he's like, all right, I'm interested. I then booked a meeting with him, got his details. I got about 6 sales out of him and made a few $1,000s commission. And when my manager found out, he sent it around the whole company Australia-wide, and I was getting all these calls like, are you crazy, man? Like, what the hell? But yeah, I mean, like, and I was crazy. I mean, what the hell was I thinking? Following a guy to his office, like. But I benefited, and you know, I was polite about it, and I was reasonable, and yeah, as long as you're pleasant and you're approachable and you're honest and you're friendly, you can get away with a lot. So yeah, don't be afraid to go the distance, but know the line between being really annoying and stalkative and being helpful and following someone. That's what I'd say.
I actually have two pieces of advice. The first one is
Don't listen to the rules. So when Jeff says one, say fuck it.
Break all the rules. Break all the rules. So the first one is, I think this especially goes for tech startups or early stage companies. It's never too early to talk to customers. Don't feel like you need to have a perfect product before you have that conversation, because those early feedback calls or demos are going to really help shape your product and make sure that you have the right fit. The second piece of advice is pick up the phone, because you know, now in the days of marketing automation and you know, sales outbound tools where you can send hundreds of emails a day and keep track of who's opened what, no one's picking up the phone and having conversations. I've had times where I've done 3 follow-ups, 4 follow-ups, and then I pick up the phone and I call them, and I'm like, hey, are you guys still interested in Lupio? They're like, yeah, sure, send us the invoice. So it's crazy how that can happen, and I think it really adds a lot of value, especially if you start off with emailing and you have an initial relationship. Picking up the phone really helps.
I'm not listening to the rules either. I have 3, but they're really, really quick. Number one is definitely to buy lots of gifts and not related to your business. I send a lot of flowers to people and just a lot of gift cards as well, and we always see a really big turnaround. So I think getting unique with the way that you're approaching people is a really important thing, and showing that you really care about them as opposed to you just see them as an invoice. So I think that and actually, I don't even remember what all of mine were anymore. But number one is definitely buying lots of gifts. We do a lot of that, and getting unique with the way that you are approaching them with these gifts. Quick story as well. Something that we do with it is if we lock down a customer, we have no minimums. But in telling somebody that there's no minimums, they always actually order quite a bit. And even if it's just a small order to start with, then that's a good in. So if they start with a small order, we then send them a handwritten letter in the mail with a Starbucks gift card all the time, saying, you know, I'd love to sit down with you and talk about the passion of where the company is going in person, but you know, we can't all fly around the world and do that. So coffee's on me, and read this letter over a coffee so that you can see how passionate we are about the growth of this. And right away, within a week of sending those out with every single customer that we have within a week, we got orders back from them that were triple their last orders. So that just going down to caring about them as people, I think, is the most important thing. Second is getting whomever's working with you in sales into the sales process. And I don't mean that in terms of, working on these tools that we all spoke about, which is important, but actually understanding why you're doing what you're doing, not just reiterating your story, but getting them involved so they have their own personal context of that story. So prime example is the people who work within our organization actually all volunteer at a women's shelter as well, at least once a week, but often many of them multiple times a week. Our sales manager facilitates a program on the downtown east side once a week as well with one of our affiliates, Beauty Night. So she has her own context story of why we do what we do, and she's able to sell a lot because of that, because she has a deep, heart-rooted thoughts on why we do what we do. So I think those are probably the two most important things for us.
Very cool. I would say for me, there's two primary things. One is that it doesn't matter who you are, like anyone can learn how to sell. So if you've been thinking like, yeah, I'm not a salesperson, like I don't like doing this, that, the other, like literally anybody can learn how to sell. It's a process that I've taught to many people. It's a process that you can definitely learn. So it doesn't matter if you're an engineer, if you're a product developer, if you're a marketer, if you're in university, if you're in high school. Like I've taught a lot of people how to sell, and like you can really learn it. So have that belief in yourself, which leads me to my second thing is sales. A lot of sales, is about confidence, and 97%, 95%, there's different stats of all communication is nonverbal. So if you're going into any kind of sales, if you have the confidence and the belief in what you're doing, which comes from what you were saying about your why, which again, go watch that Simon Sinek talk. If you have that understanding and you've got that confidence, even if you don't know how to quote unquote sell, you will sell. So those are my two things, is anyone can learn how to do it and have that confidence.
And if they want to learn how to do it, you have a course going on right now?
Yeah, I've got a couple courses coming out over the next couple months. So I think we're going to send a link.
We're going to throw it in the summary blog post from tonight.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, Cahill's going to offer a nice deal to anyone in the audience today that wants to beta test his course.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
all he asks is feedback.
Yeah, just a little bit of feedback. So I've talked to a couple people who work in project spaces and have helped them. So you can actually talk to them about what we kind of went through. And if you've got questions for me, outside of this, I'm sure you can share my email. I'll answer your questions about sales or your startups or whatever it is.
All right. Well, big round of applause for the panel tonight.